to infinity and beyond!
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No. I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Owens here with Johnny Sobchak for another wonderful episode. Johnny, how are you on this fine Monday evening?
Oh man, what a weekend! Lots going on. Again, it is the busiest time of year, I would say, when it comes to movies, and you got shows wrapping up and all sorts of craziness going on. So, yeah, we are keeping up. And nothing really disappointing, I would say, at least with the things that we're going to be talking about for the most part today.
Definitely
some award season or new movies and shows. It's all pretty good.
Everything has been living up to the hype so far. And like you said, that's very true for what we have today. We're talking about West Side Story, which will be a big time awards contender. We both saw it over the weekend, and we, of course, will be diving into the explosive Succession season 3 finale that aired on Sunday night. A ton to talk about there. So it's going to be a good, solid episode for you. And while we're talking about disappointment and things living up to the hype, we have to acknowledge that as we are recording this, the world premiere of Spider-Man No Way Home is happening. So we really hope, for the sake of our enjoyment, for the sake of next week's podcast, that also lives up to the hype and is not a disappointment. So we will be diving into that next week. But today, Succession, West Side Story, and all the other good stuff. But first off, please, if you haven't already, go to our website, go to our social media, and subscribe to our newsletter, The Rewind, where you will be getting all of our content delivered straight to your inbox once a week. And sneak peeks at certain things, like what I'm about to tell you, that we are giving away a 4K copy of the Mad Max anthology. That's right. I know for me personally, I've only witnessed Mad Max Fury Road. I haven't seen any of the originals, but it's Mad Max from 1979, the original, The Road Warrior from 1981, and Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome from 1985, as well as Mad Max Fury Road, all in one combined package. 4K Ultra HD and digital code. We will be giving that away if you subscribe to our newsletter, and the announcement is going out on Twitter tomorrow. So you get a sneak peek. Well, I guess by the time you're listening to this, it will be out there. So it'll be going out today, but you have to subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media, and you'll be entered to win. So go and do that for the Rewind. Other than that, Johnny, what's been going on since our last episode?
Oh man, I don't know how to keep up with everything. I'd say
it sounds like you've been staying up into the late night watching screeners, I'd have to guess.
Yeah, burn the midnight oil. No, but it's been nothing, I mean, not too crazy. Definitely could be crazier. Was able to knock out Licorice Pizza. We're fortunate enough to get a screener for that. So shout out to United Artists and MGM, and then also, of course, West Side Story, which we will be discussing shortly. Was able to hit the theater this weekend. Check that out. And on top of that, Succession, of course, finale. At the time of this recording was just last night. So that was huge. Looking forward to that all of last week and speculating and being anxious about it, what was going to happen. and then on top of that, visiting my girlfriend Reagan, we were furiously watching Game of Thrones. She was very she loved season 3. We finished that about a week ago, and then over the last week we cranked out season 3, most of which we watched yesterday. So we were able to get that done after we wrapped up Succession, the latest, the season finale. So she was going bonkers for that, and we really, that's, completing season 4 Game of Thrones. That's like some of the best television ever. Like those first 4 seasons, and wrapping that up, and it's like kind of sad because now going forward, it's like, well, it's not like take it with a grain of salt or like whatever, but it's like,
I still think season 6 is one of the strongest. Like the episodes 9 and 10 of season 6 are the best 2-run episodes of television that I've ever seen. So at least you still have that to look forward to, at the Battle of the Bastards and the Winds of Winter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's certainly probably the biggest highlights, I would say, to come. But yeah, so it is a bit of a pivoting point, but I'm glad that we're kind of getting through it, at a decent click. And I'm just going to be curious to see. I mean, she's been very surprised and emotional and shocked and all sorts of feelings the last, few seasons so far. So I'll be curious to see how she feels about everything on the back end. But yeah, so lots of TV, nothing like crazy new for me, but a lot with, what do we have? About 2 weeks until we have to submit our nominations for North Carolina Film Critics Association. So I plan on watching at least a dozen movies or so in the next couple of weeks to make sure I can get some accurate and worthwhile nominations submitted.
I feel you on that, sir. It was a light week for me. I know we had a short week since we recorded kind of later last week, but we're back on schedule this week. But I only saw, as far as movies go, West Side Story since the last podcast. Unfortunately, I started Licorice Pizza, and then something came up and I wasn't able to continue finishing it. And it was only like an 8-hour window, 12-hour window, something like that. So I have seen the first 50-ish minutes to an hour, and I guess I'll just have to head to the theater when that comes out to finish it, maybe roll in halfway through. So that will be one that I'll need to do to finish crossing off my list. But on the TV side of things, obviously Succession, which we're about to dive into. But I said it last week, I'll say it again. Hawkeye keeps getting better. Episode 4 was really good, really solid stuff there. And I don't know if we're going to fall victim to the overselling of Marvel TV shows, but there was talk last week that they were already saying before episode 4 came out that episode 5 was going to break the internet. So we'll see if that happens. I would not expect going into this show for anything Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner related to break the internet, but you never know with a Wednesday release and a Spider-Man coming out on the following Friday, if there's going to be any sort of, I remember when they had the Mandalorian episode prior to the release of Rise of Skywalker, that there was like a tie-in from something that you learned in the show applied to the movie. So we'll see if that happens here, but very, very interested to see. It's been cruising through the first 4 episodes, really good stuff. And I'm excited to watch the final 2, but other than that, nothing too crazy going on except for Succession. So shall we dive into what was the most explosive thing of the week?
Let's do it.
Tom. My goodness. What an episode overall. Just absolutely. The first season, obviously the finale at Shiv's wedding and Kendall killing the server. And then season 2 finale, Kendall flipping on his family. And now this, like, Succession season finales do not miss. And this one was certainly of that same caliber. Just so much happening across the board and so many great moments from a storytelling perspective and a acting perspective. But we have to talk first about the finale reveal when the kids finally seem to have it together. They're teaming up. Everything's going to finally work out. But we know that's not how it works in the world of Logan Roy, because as Tom said, I've never seen Logan get fucked. And it turns out that Tom was working for him all along, and that he screwed over Shiv. He screwed over Kendall and Roman and everybody except for himself and Greg. and he's the new top dog, Johnny. I don't know about you, but when Logan walked out of the room and patted him on the shoulder, just absolute jaw dropper. What was the reaction at the Sobchak household?
Well, I will say this. When Shiv called Tom, and they got off the phone, in my, like, the first thing that popped in my head was that he's gonna tell Logan. He is going to tell Logan. I don't know why that was something that like just struck me in that moment, but it was the first thing I thought. I guess it was because earlier in the season, and these are things that kind of happened a long time ago now, we've kind of forgotten. There was a lot of strange stuff going on between Tom and Logan, and there was a lot of friction between Tom and Shiv, of course. And it was kind of uncertain about what direction Tom was going to go. He seemed like he might be tipping or leaning away from Shiv, from the family. And this was also when he was at risk of going to prison. And that was kind of the main reason that a lot of people were speculating, or at least I was speculating or feeling like he might try to cut a deal, might try to break free. Kendall was approaching him and he was like, hey, there's other options here. Now, of course, Kendall's kind of like, what happens here in this episode is Kendall kind of slips back onto the inside with his siblings, incredibly, which is a whole revelation in and of itself that we'll talk about. But there, yeah, when there was that call between him and Logan, and then I kind of forgot about it because so much emotional, heavy stuff, interesting, exciting business, goings on was happening in the last 20 minutes or so, maybe, of this episode. I kind of forgot about Tom and that whole situation. So I will say also, though, when he does walk out and it's kind of like you're so focused on the kids, you're so focused on like the familial, conflict that's going on. When he does walk out and Tom and I think Shiv says out loud, she's like, how the hell did he know we were coming? Mm-hmm. And then in my head, like, then it clicked and I was like, oh my God. And then, of course, it cuts to like half a second later, Tom is out in the hall and passing Logan, and Logan's like, oh, like, good job, thank you. And then he walks in. It's just like unbelievable, like a true epic, like, oh, what a power play. It was a Godfather-esque, I've seen that comparison made a few times now. Finale and ending and moment and shot looking out into the hall and looking into the room, and it was just chef's kiss, perfect, like so well crafted, shocking but also logical,
right? Like, it's just... you look back and like, I'm upset with Tom, but I 100% can't fault him whatsoever for doing what he did after the way that he's been treated all season. Like, we've seen it each and every step of the way that how Shiv has treated him, and most recently in the last episode, like how we talked about how awful she was to him. But just like my favorite, I think, was going back full circle to the meeting between all of the siblings at Kendall's apartment in his kid's bedroom, and they get the donuts delivered. And shortly before that, Shiv had a phone call with Tom and told him that she was meeting with Kendall, and then the donuts show up. So now we learn that it was Tom all along, that he was the one keeping tabs on everything, and just fantastic laying the breadcrumbs, laying the trail there. But the most heartbreaking thing here is that, like, there was such the moment between Tom and Greg was such like vintage, those two, their relationship. And the whole time you're doing it, the whole time, like, he's laying that out there and making his offer, do you want to make a deal with the devil? Like, we think that he is, or at least I thought that, like, you're intended to think that he's talking about like teaming up against Logan, going with Kendall, going with Shiv, going with like joining the rebellion against Logan. But instead it's obviously he's making the deal with Logan, and that's turning on everybody else. So, but anyway, that moment was so perfect of just like them being silly and who needs a soul anyway, and like all of that. And it's like, I was like loving that and eating it up. And it's like, oh man, these guys are great. And then like they just pull the rug out from under you and you realize that they were the villains. Like everybody's a villain in this show. We've established that. But like to kind of flip the script and now it's like, wait, but I was just loving them, but now I hate them. But like it was a good move for them because like obviously just like the fact that the kids finally got their shit together and decided to team up, and Roman and his arc, like everybody has such great moments in this episode, but Roman's arc all season being daddy's number one boy and then finally overcoming it. And like, if anything, I thought going into that last meeting that Roman was going to be the one to collapse, but he stands up against his dad and he sticks it to him. And then this happens. So it was just devastating for that. But I'm glad that Kendall is kind of finding himself again and getting back in with the people who care about him. It was hard to imagine like prior to this, like, do they really care about him? Do they love him? Whatever. But like the moment when they're in the, I guess you'd call it a parking lot, when they're outside of the wedding and he's coming clean about everything that's happened with him. And that even though Roman's still cracking jokes and Shiv's still like standoffish, like in their own ways, you can tell that they're extending sympathy and caring for him and being good siblings. So it is just, like you said, masterclass, masterpiece across the board in this episode. I was outside of the big reveal at the end. I know we both kind of touched on moments. Was there, what else was the biggest for you in this episode?
Yeah, it's
also fuck the mom.
Oh God, yeah, she's awful. She's just,
we should have known that there was not just like some coincidental wedding, that like we weren't going there just for scenic views of Europe, that like the writers knew exactly what they were doing, weaving her back into the story.
Yeah, no, that was huge. I mean, it was instrumental in her, decision to really, Logan worked his magic. I mean, he just like Tom said, I've never seen Logan get fucked once, not once. And it's so, I could go on and on about this episode. But I think it's going to be hard to wrap my head around, and it'll be interesting to kind of speculate and theorize. And I'd be curious to hear what you think. I don't necessarily have anything of my own. I'm still kind of like in shock and processing this, but what will, the season 4 premiere look like? What will this, season 4 as a whole look like, as far as where it's going to pick up in the timeline? Is it going to pick up immediately after, like this season did, or is it going to pick up a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? What does that look like for the siblings? What does it look like for Tom and Greg? How's Logan going to be doing? They're talking about him having a kid, maybe. Oh
my God, there's
I think a lot of moving parts.
The perfect arc of this show, if it ends with season 4, it would be beautiful, because season 1, Shiv's wedding. Season 2, we got away from the wedding. Season 3, Mom's wedding. Season 4, Connor and Willa's wedding as the grand finale of this show. Fireworks would be going off, but I really hope that they do. Like, these characters are so well developed and so well built that like I would hate to have a jump ahead and miss any sort of development with them, because like we've seen that they're also like fully formed right now, and I would hate to just kind of miss out on anything. It's like, oh wait, Shiv is like this now, or like Tom does this now. Like I think I love the fact that this season picked up immediately after season 2, and I would like to see that continue here.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it could go either way. I've heard some pretty interesting arguments for both, or like different ideas. It is just, it's hard to imagine where they go, and it's really strange because until I realized that the kids were really being screwed by Tom, and Tom was like the instrumental turn in this. When they were the siblings, they're all talking outside in the dirt parking lot, and then they all get up and agree to go together to meet Logan. and they have the talk in the car, and it's like this big great coming together moment. And you really think that they're going to, at least I did, I thought there's a possibility that they were actually going to pull this off, or like that, what they were telling us, what they said that they could do made sense, and there's no reason to believe otherwise. It really felt to me, and I said it to Reagan when we were watching it in the moment, and of course we knew season 4 was already announced. They announced that like over a month ago. I was like, this feels like a series finale. Like this feels like the culmination of everything in like the most conclusive way possible. Like I could imagine the 3 kids, they unite, they go and take down their fucking dad. They get him out. They agree to take these different roles within the company. They agree, they're like, hey, we could actually work pretty well together. And maybe we actually do care about each other at the end of the day, more than all the other, bullshit we put each other through, and what has gone on over the last, within the world of the show, the last couple of months or so. I think that is, it felt to me like, so like almost too good to be true, I guess, in a way. And of course it is too good to be true, but also that's the amazing thing about this show is throughout so much of the season and so much of the show period, the last, 3 seasons and few years it's been on, I hate Shiv. I hate Roman. I hate so many things about Kendall. I think that they are just horrible human beings that are selfish and cruel and stupid. And then somehow at the end of all of this, they're together and they're going off to try to take down Logan. And I'm like, I just love that they're all together. I love them, doing this together. I love, I want to see them succeed. Like how does Jesse Armstrong do it? I really don't know.
Right.
It is so unbelievably impressive. And I can't praise it enough. The writing and the orchestration of these character arcs in concert with one another. And just a couple episodes ago, I was ready to rip Roman's head off because he was being so mean to Kendall at his birthday party, and was just shutting out Shiv and really sucking up to his dad. And he is just, and he was being, a sexual, predator toward Jerry and harassing her, sending her these, unsolicited.
What was Greg's phrase? That when he was talking to the contestant, he said, I believe in your language, they would call him a sexual pervert or something like that.
He's like, it's so funny because he's like, they would call him a sexual pervert. And like he's trying so hard to think of something, or like a particular way of phrasing it, and then he just ends up saying sexual pervert at the end of it. I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, no, I mean that's spot on. It's accurate. But yeah, just so much to think about with this one. And we're gonna be thinking about it for a while. I mean, we're gonna be thinking about this it's gonna be a couple of years until the next season comes out, I would presume. I mean, this year's almost over. When I say a couple of years, just sometime in 2023, I would imagine. For me, it's really gonna be like the next couple of years of waiting for this season 4 of Succession, and then of course Dune Part 2, which everyone knows I'm obsessed about. But like that's gonna keep me going, I would say, for the next however long. It's a lot to look forward to. And this reminds me of prime Game of Thrones, watching Game of Thrones live, having those amazing twists, the reactions online right afterward or during the show, and speculating, theorizing, and then it ends, and there's that wait, and you have to wait a year, 2 years potentially, or more. It just feels like this is the best I think television has to offer.
And for the both of us, this was the first season that we were watching along with live. Like we had both binged season 1 and 2. So like we both had to wait. I had a little bit longer than you, but it wasn't as long as the people who had watched season 2 live waiting for season 3. But now to kind of be in the instant reaction after the season finale, and now knowing that you've got this long wait, it's miserable. But a couple more things I want to touch on. I expect, hope, anticipate Connor having a bigger role. We saw him have his freak out about being the eldest brother justifiably. And one of the biggest things that I've always seen is that like if Connor was just like some schmuck that didn't have any important part to play, it wouldn't be Alan Ruck. Like it wouldn't be like a famous actor like that to be kind of just like here and there popping in and out of the show. So I think there's certainly a plan in place for him as a character leading into season 3. Like 1 was Kendall's season, 2 was Shiv's season, 3 was Roman's season. So it's only practical. I mean, I don't know if I'd expect him to come in and be like the heavy hitter, but something more significant. It seems like it's trending in that direction. But Shiv and Tom, will have to see the look that Sarah Snook gave as Tom comes in and says, "What happened?" and kisses her on the head. Like, if looks could kill, I saw a tweet that was like, Shiv is about to enter her Amy Dunn era from Gone Girl, talking about someone who's gonna take out their husband. And I don't think that Tom has made his move now, but he is not prepared for what Shiv is going to be willing to do and how she's absolutely going to eviscerate him. So I don't think he fully thought this through, and because he still loves Shiv. I imagine he's been treated poorly, but he's still like not as hard and tough and cutthroat as the rest of the family. So I don't know if he's going to end up being able to see the other side of this, but
I really disagree with that, actually. I mean, this is arguably the most cutthroat thing that has ever happened in this entire show. And the fact that we have seen Tom for the last 8-9 episodes, like ruminating on it and plotting and calculating, watching Shiv, watching Logan, watching, meeting with Kendall in secret. I think he completely understands what he has chosen to do and like the path he's taking, and he is utterly prepared to see it through, whatever that means. And he has aligned himself with Logan. He's aligned himself with Greg. In theory, he's potentially aligned himself with Mattson,
with
Alexander
the defunct
Skarsgård's
Italian monarchy,
and
he's got them in his corner.
He's got the European elites in his corner. And also, I saw those comparisons online, but then I thought the more accurate comparison, which is to say Shiv is really the Nick Dunn of this situation. If you want to use the Gone Girl analogy, she is the asshole that has been around for years, pushing her partner to the brink, just eviscerating his emotional capacity, eviscerating any sort of intimacy or regard for their wishes. And now he is gone, he is Gone Girl. He is, dyeing his hair and throwing the blood around the kitchen. And now we're going to see his plan, come to fruition and what that looks like. I am really curious. I mean, it's interesting you brought it up. And we're talking about how we feel about it. I do feel bad for the kids. Like, I genuinely thought that they were going to make it work, and now I do feel bad. But also, they are terrible and not good people. And I'm not saying Tom is a good person or Logan's a good person. Obviously, that's a murky situation. But I don't. It's so black and not black and white. It's very, very gray. And I just, I feel like season 4 is going to tear apart my feelings and like allegiances in my own mind, like even more than this one did. But because I just have such mixed feelings. Because Tom, I just have felt so bad for him, especially this season, watching him and Shiv interact and wanting him to like get free of those shackles. And now he seems to be making a break for it. It's just a question of what that looks like ultimately. How does he execute that all the way, with not only his business decisions but his marriage and all that entails.
I do want to last thing I'll point out, the full circle moment between Tom and Greg, where back when Tom thought he was still going to prison, telling Greg about Nero, who pushed his wife down the stairs, and then he had Sporus castrated and married him instead. So obviously Tom is pushing Shiv down the stairs right now. And when he tells him about making the deal with the devil, he refers to Greg as Sporus. So the way that was just like planted throughout, and to see that come back around there. My brother was telling me, we were talking after the show, and he's like, there's so many like French Revolution allusions in here, and like Roman Empire like references that I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that sort of history, so it was lost on me, but I'm sure that someone much smarter than me will end up writing like an analysis of it all, and I'll be happy to read it.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait. I certainly believe that and have sensed a lot of that, but I cannot wait to rewatch this season. And really the last, the entire show, I will certainly go back and rewatch it at least once between now and when season 4 comes out. But this season in particular, because there has been so much to kind of key in on and try to piece together before we even got to this point. I was curious how it was all going to fit. And now, of course, we see the full portrait, and I rewatching it and knowing where it's going, knowing a lot of the pieces that people have started to pull out and dust off, and even the last 24 hours or so since the finale, to see that for myself or to find even more, that's going to be really interesting with the full picture. I think it's just it's a testament to how genius the writing is and how well thought through it all is and developed, and all the clues are there, but can you think it through and stay focused and not get lost in the fog like all the kids seem to have been, especially Shiv, because I mean it's her own husband right under her nose, ready to
Right.
push her down the stairs.
Well, now we wait, the hardest part. And I said it at the start of our recaps back when the season kicked off, that this wasn't really like that neither of us were going to be like theorizing week to week on we're not picking who sits on the Iron Throne or anything like that it wasn't like that kind of show. But now, obviously, looking back, if you had been doing that, you probably could have figured out what was going to happen. So maybe we'll have to start doing that as we wait for season 4. But what a master class in television and storytelling and acting, that the sweep next September at the Emmys is going to be warranted. The 5 Golden Globe nominations that it just got, the Critics' Choice nominations that it's got last week, like the succession supremacy is for real, and Johnny and I are here leading the campaign.
Oh, no question. It was very fitting to wake up this morning, and regardless of what you think of the Hollywood Foreign Press and Golden Globes, to see those nominations pop up. And then, yeah, of course, Emmys, pretty much a year away and going into next year, I'm expecting a slew of recognition for this show, and deservedly so.
Indeed. Well, let's move into news. We'll talk about briefly the awards that I just referenced. Critics' Choice Awards, film nominations. TV was last week. Film nominations came out today, as well as Golden Globe nominations. Nothing too surprising, I would say, especially like I said, we're not going to, like you alluded to, Hollywood Foreign Press, Golden Globes, they're kind of canceled this year. They're not even being aired. So I don't really know what the purpose is. I guess they're still handing out awards, but nobody's going to pay attention to it. But anyway, no big time surprises. Belfast and West Side Story lead with 11 nominations each for the Critics' Choice Awards. So that's very topical since we're talking West Side Story. Belfast, I know we both have seen that. Johnny, I think you're higher on that than me. I thought it was fine. If it were up to me, I would not be giving it 11 nominations. But Dune and The Power of the Dog are shortly behind them with 10 each. I have yet to see Power of the Dog. I know you've seen it, correct?
Yes, I thought it was fantastic.
Okay, but obviously the Dune Hive is well represented with 10 nominations there. Any thoughts about snubs, anything that I'm missing as far as surprises go, or good things that happened there that have piqued your interest as our resident awards expert?
No, not anything that was like terribly surprising. It all seems to be pretty lined up with what I expected. Of course, I'm most keyed in on the Dune situation with regards to nominations and wins and throughout the award season. Uh, this is what it's all been leading to as far as my uh, passion and support for the movie. This is a big part. It's conquered the box office aspect of it. Now it has to get all the awards nominations and wins. So I am very, very pleased to see, as I, presumed it would at most of the major award shows, it has garnered the double, digit nominations, got 10 from the Critics' Choice. And they don't do a sound category for the technical bits. So that's something that, of course, it would get at the Oscars and will get pretty much almost everywhere else. So it was a very strong showing, got into the major ones that it needed to, which include picture, director, and it got into adapted screenplay as well. And the ones they nominated for adapted screenplay wouldn't surprise me if those are the 5 at the Oscars as well. These Critics' Choice, if anything, I think people are a little disappointed because they do seem to be very much trying to like predict or mirror what they think is going to happen at the Oscars, which is kind of unfortunate because the critics that's when they're should be pushing for movies that they want to see show up at the Oscars that maybe aren't guaranteed that opportunity at the moment. Things like Come On, Come On, which I would have loved to have seen get some nominations here. Or, other things like Shiva Baby or The Worst Person in the World, a few of my other favorite movies from this year, which they got a nomination, like 1 or 2 maybe in this show so far. But like, what that ends up looking like in some others, hopefully they gain some momentum later on. But Dune showing up in all the categories that it needed to and expected to was great. And that includes the Golden Globes, which, I don't know if they're even going to recognize it or talk about it or who cares, but it did show up in Best Picture Drama and showed up in Best Director and it showed up in Best Score for Hans Zimmer. And those were the 3 where it was expected to show up. Screenplay is not split between adapted and original. They just put them the top 5 together. So didn't expect it to show up there. But The Power of the Dog doing really well, Belfast doing really well, West Side Story doing really well at Critics' Choice, double digits, not surprising. That'll be pretty similar to what I think ends up happening at the Oscars. Again, they do seem to be trying to predict the Oscars quite a bit. And I would say it's on track to do that. I think all 4 of those pictures are going to be in play to get, 10, 11 or a dozen or more nominations. And, I made a joke on Friday because it's when the ballots were due for this. I was like, it's just trying to justify why I should be able to submit a ballot for this. And I, honest to God, I really wish I could have, because I certainly would have been trying to nominate or submit some more interesting or outside the box options. But these are fine. Dune is doing really well, and that's like my main, area of concern, I guess. And awards don't, they're not the end all be all, not the biggest deal in the world. And this is really the last major televised award show that is going to be doing nominations anytime soon. In the new year, of course, we will be getting nominations for SAG, Screen Actors Guild, as well as BAFTA, the British Film Academy, and the Oscars. Of course, that'll be, that's where it's all leading to. And then, of course, lots of film critics groups in the meantime, including our own. And that's nominations and wins. And I'm just looking forward to seeing some more of these films and getting to do our own voting, in the not too distant future.
Definitely. I would say it's interesting that you mentioned, I didn't think about trying to predict the Oscars, but that is the added pressure with no Golden Globes this year, that the Critics' Choice is like the kickoff. It is the first step to awards season, if you will, like as far as movies go. So instead of just being what I guess their normal role is, they're kind of trying to become a more premier award ceremony and, like you said, predict rather than just award. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But other than award season, not much news, but there was one in the wizarding world. Johnny, I know you were anti this trailer. I told you to watch it for the sake of the podcast. I don't know if that happened or not, but the first trailer for Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore was released this morning on Monday. Did you watch this before we get started?
Okay, honest to God, I didn't, but I didn't intentionally not watch it.
Okay, okay.
I completely honestly, as soon as you said that I should watch it,
because you sent it right at 10 a.m. So I figured
did.
you'd spent right when it dropped. You were in the group chat sending that.
Yes, because everyone knows I'm just so amped up about these movies. But I as soon as you said to watch it, I think that was the last thing that I heard or saw about it, and then I was working all day and then passed out right when I finished working. So I did not actually end up watching it. And I think that's probably a testament to my feelings toward this franchise, where, it wasn't like I begrudgingly just had to watch it, or I just I ended up choosing to watch it or whatever. Like, I genuinely forgot about it like moments after it came out. And like just that level of interest is just so not even close to being there. And I have seen some stills online from the trailer. I've seen some people, make some, and that's another thing too. I haven't even really seen anyone say anything about it. Really, I mean, I think the only tweets I've seen kind of in passing are just people saying it looks like shit. So, I don't know what you think about that, but I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't watch the trailer and come away from it saying that it looked bad, but it didn't get me any more excited about it whatsoever. Like, I enjoyed the first movie well enough. Like, it was fine. It wasn't necessary. But I wasn't like upset that I saw it. I enjoyed it. It was fine. Second movie was a struggle. And as someone who's always been a diehard Harry Potter fan, I was like, okay, I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt. We know that this is going to be a 5-movie saga, and so I'll allow it. It wasn't good, but we'll see how the vision is going, and trust the process. So this movie, after that last film, I wasn't super like keen on this, but the trailer, it just happened. It just kind of happened. I'm not really necessarily feeling one way or another. I will say it looks like this movie, I don't know if this was the original intention or if this is like a result of the negative feedback, but it seems like they're almost like just trying to turn it into Harry Potter at this point. There's a lot that seems to be happening at Hogwarts. You've got Dumbledore being the main character now, basically, instead of Newt, it seems like. We've got the Great Hall, the Room of Requirement, there's plenty between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. You even see Michael Gambon's Dumbledore, which I don't imagine he's going to be back for this for any sort of sequence, but I assume that was just like a flashback to the old footage from the original films. But I don't know. It just seems like they're kind of falling back on, okay, this didn't really work initially, so let's like give them more of what they're comfortable with. So who knows? This is the first trailer. It comes out April 15th, I believe. So it's coming relatively soon. It's crazy to think that that's like considered soon at this point, 4 months away. But
not a great release date, got to say.
Yeah, you'd think that for a Harry Potter movie, it would be a big blockbuster in the summer or something like that. But that is not the case. Hopefully they can get it back on track. I know like the big reveal at the end of the last movie was that what's his name, Credence, I think that was Ezra Miller's character, that he is a Dumbledore. His real name is Aurelius Dumbledore. So who knows what's going to happen from there. But we'll see. Oh, also a young Aberforth Dumbledore was in this as well. So they're, like I said, just really trying to weave in some Harry Potter, like mainline Harry Potter stuff into here. So we'll see what happens, but I'll be there. I'll watch it, but we'll see if this ends up being a full 5-movie saga or not. Because people, after that second one, people were calling just like make it a trilogy, wrap it up. But who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't hold your breath.
Yeah, they really got over eager, I would say, in saying that was going to be 5 movies. But anyway, shall we move on to West Side Story.
Let's.
This is my first time in New York City. I want to be happy here. I want to make a life, a home.
Are you ready? Tonight is about family. The first gringo boy who smiles at you.
I never seen you before. I'm not Puerto Rican.
Is that okay?
Do you want to start World War III?
All right, we have the latest from Steven Spielberg. He is back once again, helming his first ever musical on screen. It's a remake of West Side Story. Once again, putting this story on the big screen. We've got Ansel Elgort, Rachel Zegler. Is it Ariana or Ariana?
It's Ariana, I believe.
Ariana DeBose. Is that correct?
I'm sure
Am I doing this correctly? Ariana DeBose, David Alvarez, Mike Faced, Rita Moreno coming back once again for a new role this time. Currently sitting at a 93% critic score, 95% audience score. Myself, I gave this an 82. I was a big fan, 4 stars out of 5. Johnny, how did you feel about this movie?
I thought it was pretty damn good, Zach. I thought that it was. I've seen the original once, like 15 years ago, I think. So it's been a while, and I remember liking it just fine. I remember it certainly striking a chord and being memorable. The musical numbers and the colors and the costumes and everything. But I've never been a huge musical theater fan. I am not someone that really just grabs hold of a soundtrack, and I don't even need to see the show, or I can just ride along that way. But of course, Steven Spielberg taking on this musical, I thought was an interesting choice, of course, because the original film was such a major success and is such a legendary endeavor. I think it won like 10 Oscars or something. So it's like what more can you do with it? But Steven Spielberg said, I'll show you. And part of that involves actually casting some Puerto Rican actors, not doing brown face, which is a great adjustment, I would say, for the
off to a great start there
for the current year. And I thought that technically this film was perfect. I thought it was fantastically crafted, from the sets to the costumes to the cinematography, the way this camera floats in, out, and around these locations and these sets, and the characters as they're twirling about. And it's really something. And only Spielberg could have done it this way. And that's why I think it was worthwhile making it, because it is maybe, I don't know if people will call this the definitive interpretation of this, at least for the film screen, but I could understand why if people did. And the cast is really the cherry on top. Fantastically cast, as we were saying. Ariana DeBose, she is, her Mike Faced, I believe is how you pronounce it. Mm-hmm. He plays Riff. And then of course we also have the leads in this. We have Rachel Zegler, of course, which is she's kind of like a rising shooting star that is becoming more and more famous by the day. But this is her first major film role, and that's something that we've known about her, and that it
seems like she's been a star for the last 3 years just because of her Twitter presence. And I remember, I think I first came across her because she was doing a sound check and doing the belting from Shallow. That's a viral video on Twitter of her, and I started following her. And again, this movie has been in production since 2018, 2019. So right, she's been on the radar, and it's finally here for her.
Well, yeah, the pandemic certainly added to that wait time and that kind of strange, almost famous sort of situation. But and then of course David Alvarez as well. He is in the cast as Bernardo. He is fantastic. So there's a wide variety of characters. If anyone that's familiar with the show knows that. And then of course the gangs themselves. There's, a ton of supporting actors, whether it's the Jets, the Sharks, guys, girls, all that stuff, and more. There's a lot to kind of cover in this story. And so I thought all that stuff was great. The only issues I have with the film, I'm not gonna try to downplay the issues I have, because they're not insignificant, but my issues with the film really lie in my issues with West Side Story as a piece of art and as a story, for lack of a better term. It's that we'll get more into that later on, because it also deals with some spoilers and stuff. But I feel like this story for me is limited to a degree, because I think
there's a ceiling for how high you could give a score of this movie, just based on you can only do it so well.
Yes, exactly, because I think there are some pretty significant issues that I can't really look past. But yes, that's a great way of putting it. And so I thought the movie overall was very good, pretty much great in a lot of respects. But I do have some issues, and we'll talk more about that. But what did you think of it, Zach?
A lot of what you said sums up how I feel. Technically, just stunning. The production design, the colors, the cinematography, everything that I think we knew from people lost their mind over the not the opening shot, but the shot from, I think it might've been the opening shot of one of the trailers, where it's before the rumble and you get the overhead view of the shadows coming in from both opposing gangs. And people knew oh, Spielberg's in his bag for this one. And he certainly lived up to the hype. He was in his bag indeed. But just something like that, the opening sequence of the movie where you're really setting the scene with the rubble and everything, that this part of town that's just been demolished to build new condos or whatever it was. But I'm with you in the fact that Rebecca did musical theater, my brother did musical theater. I've been exposed to it quite a bit. So it kind of sounds bad to be it's not my favorite genre, but that's accurate. So going into this, I was yes, I know it's supposed to be great, but I'm still not hesitant, but just not thrilled necessarily to see it. It wasn't one that I was necessarily anticipating. And especially knowing that it was 2 hours and 38 minutes. But I will say it was very well paced and kind of, I wouldn't say it flew by, but it was never, I didn't think it ever really lagged or dragged or anything like that. So that was a welcome surprise for me, for someone who was not necessarily eager to see this. But Rachel Zegler, superstar, fantastic. Bernardo as well. I did not realize that, I didn't know anything about Mike Feist going into this, who plays Riff, but big time John Mulaney vibes from him. I don't know if you got the same vibe, but he was fantastic.
How
I don't know.
Fucking dare you throw John Mulaney on top of this poor boy?
They have the same facial structure. I definitely, Rebecca saw it as well. That we both mentioned that after we got out of the theater. But yeah, just really, really crisp. I enjoyed this quite a bit, more than expected. So I was a fan. Yeah, like I said, 4 out of 5 stars, 82 out of 100. Johnny, let's hear it. What is the ceiling here? What is it that makes it? Where does it hit the ceiling?
No, I think I'd probably give around a 4 out of 5 as well. Right around 80, I think. I thought, again, it's just so much of it is so well done. It's really hard to ignore, even with some of the bigger issues that I have with West Side Story. It's just directed crazy. And the colors, the lighting, camera movements,
The performances are, very strong, I would say, across the board. And yeah, it is a largely engaging story. I would say I disagree about with my experience, how I felt with regards to the pacing. I felt like it does slow down quite a bit after one major thing happens. Maybe
which we can get, like, this story is so old, we can get into spoilers. You don't have to dance around that.
So after Riff and Bernardo die, I feel like it does like grind to a halt in a lot of ways, because literally the characters are just kind of like standing around or like hiding. And so I think it just kind of, and there's a lot of course, dramatic tension building up to that showdown. And then, of course, once that is relieved, and we have these moments of violence and death, and then it's kind of like the fallout of that. It does get quite slow, and there's some tonal jarring that goes on. We go from the corpses on the ground to Maria singing about how pretty she is. It's a lot on that back end, and there's also like a pretty unpleasant this like attempted sexual assault scene that goes down, and then there's like this there's this musical number with Maria and Anita where they sing together that I thought was interesting, and I didn't remember that from my prior experience with the musical. So yeah, there's some interesting things that happen, but some of it I was just like, oh, I feel like I wish they had done this differently, or they could have cut that out or something. But yeah, let's talk.
Hold on. I want to say real quick, going back to your point about after the Rumble and it grinding to a halt, I will say I did not remember, like, I thought that like the Rumble happened, and then I thought that like all of the, like, I thought the Rumble was like the end, because I've seen it as well. I've seen like the stage play, and so, but it was like years ago, so like it wasn't like super crisp. But I was like, okay, I know the Rumble happens, I know they die, and then I know like the whole that the big ending where Maria is trying to like meet up, and that why can't I think of his name right now?
Tony?
That Tony gets shot in the street by
Chino.
I'm so bad at name, by Chino. But like I knew that all of that happened, but I just forgot that I guess there was so much of a gap in between everything. Like I thought it kind of all happened in succession, but at the same time, like I did not feel the same way I guess that you did, where even though I expected it to all happen together, I didn't feel like it like dragged there.
And of course, part of it is also the contrivances of this Romeo and Juliet story, where it's like very, and so that's where I'm going to get into now, to discussing my issues with it, because then I think we can also kind of weave in the brighter spots as well with regards to that. But so really, my issue is with West Side Story is, well, it is Romeo and Juliet.
100%.
Like to a T. If you don't know that by now, I mean, it's very famously based on Romeo and Juliet, but it's like, it is very like literally Romeo and Juliet, with one key difference at the end. But the issue with West Side Story in and of itself is that it is so like slavishly dedicated to adapting that Shakespeare drama that I think it really does a disservice to the more interesting characters in the story, which are Anita, Bernardo, and Riff. I think they are hands down more interesting. And by comparison, Tony and Maria really suffer because they come off as kind of like one-dimensional to some degree, and kind of dumb and like naive, and like it's you have these other characters that feel so fleshed out and so, three-dimensional and layered, like Riff, who is really like a bastard in a lot of ways, but there is something in there. And Mike Face's performance in this, of course, goes a long way, because he comes off as very likable. and he's very talented and is showing off throughout the movie. But it's like you want him to kind of get out of this hole that he is in, and of course it also doesn't help that Ansel Elgort, which whatever you think about him and whatever you think about his controversy related to the sexual misconduct and other allegations, like he is not as likable as the guy who's supposed to be like not that likable in the movie. And like I thought that Elgort's performance was like pretty good, like fine as Tony. Like I didn't have an issue with his like singing necessarily or like his acting. I thought he was like serviceable at least, if not pretty good in most of the parts. But as far as singing, dancing, acting, like he is like bottom of the barrel compared to everyone else, which is unfortunate because he's the lead.
Right.
And it really makes me wonder, why the hell was Steven Spielberg so hell-bent on having this guy as Tony? Like, I just don't get it. Like, think about how many amazing actors, whether you're pulling from Broadway, off Broadway, whatever, like worldwide talent search. I'm sure they've done thousands of auditions for every single role, except probably Ansel Elgort's. Like, I don't understand. Someone else could have.
He was probably the one that they like based it around when they were casting it initially.
Like, someone really could have used that role as like their big break. And I guarantee they could have sang and danced their ass off and not also have carried issues of off-screen, allegations and all these other things. So like, it just feels like a big miss and kind of wasted opportunity. And that also plays into the fact that Tony's just not that interesting. And I don't think Maria's that interesting. And I don't think their relationship ever feels convincing or interesting either, unfortunately. And that is a big part of it. And it honestly, as famous as Romeo and Juliet is, I don't think a lot of people really like that play that much. Like it's very famous, obviously.
It's iconic. Yeah, it's iconic, but nobody cares. Like
nobody loves Romeo and Juliet. You know what I mean? It's just something everyone reads or sees at one point or another. And I think a big part of the reason why people don't like it is they don't really like Romeo and Juliet that much. And they feel like that the drama and the romance is so contrived and not really that organic or believable. And so I think that is a big part of it. And then of course, the way that they die at the end in Romeo and Juliet, here it's Tony after Riff and Bernardo are killed, he ends up dying. And there are some good things I think they do here to make it a little bit more convincing logically. But yeah, for me, that is the biggest, like the fatal flaw, if you will, even though I think this movie is still great, even though I think there's a lot of merit to be had in West Side Story. I think ultimately it can't get through this like barrier, in my mind, at least, because the key central two characters and their romance and the drama that arises from that feels inauthentic or inorganic to some degree. And then of course that leads into some other things that I have issue with, like primarily after Bernardo is killed by Tony makes the decision to kill Bernardo in cold blood. And like it can't be overlooked or understated. He shows up and Maria knows what has happened. Like she's been told. And he shows up at her window and in her bedroom. And she hears and realizes, you killed my brother. She says, let's fuck. And I really can't reconcile that in my brain. And I really don't understand how most people could watch this and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, or that's believable. And I'm okay with that. And I think that this is good necessarily. Like, and it's like, it is like, again, I do like this movie, but I feel like that is a huge issue that I can't really like wrap my head around.
Yeah, I definitely like the whole premise, like you said, Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story, whatever you want to refer to it as. The fact that this is like over the span of like 2 days, 3 days, whatever, however long it is, that she would then, I don't know, musical theater is weird. They just have you like suspend your belief more than you have to in like sci-fi or fantasy or something to believe what happens in musical theater. So that's my hot take. I'm sorry, not sorry.
And with all due respect to Jerome Robbins, Arthur Lawrence, Stephen Sondheim, etc. West Side Story is obviously iconic, amazing, et cetera, musical theater, film, whatever. But like, again, thinking back, and of course, hindsight's 2020, all that, I'm not an artist by any means, but like, I wonder at what point, if they, creating this musical, if they were just like, Anita's way more interesting, Bernardo's more interesting, Riff's more interesting. Like, I feel like why, like, I wish that this had just been conceived as like an original musical, like a true original story, not trying to line up so closely to Romeo and Juliet. And I understand there's a lot of reasons why they probably chose to go that route. But I feel like there's just a even greater story in this world with these characters. And it feels a little like so tightly bound to the Romeo and Juliet element that it's like trying to break free, and it really can't, unfortunately, because I think Anita's, again, amazing. Riff, Bernardo, and especially with this cast that they have here. And even Maria Zegler, like, I thought she was, I mean, everyone knows she can sing. You talked about that viral video, among other things. She's fantastic. Her voice is fantastic. I thought she was just good in the role. I thought that she did the job, as you would expect. I didn't think she was, she didn't blow me away with her performance. I thought in the scenes where she wasn't singing, I thought she was just fine. And I also, and again, I don't know what people think about this in the actual like Puerto Rican community or outside of that as well. But I did think it was kind of odd that they had her like do an accent for this. Like it was distracting because I've seen her talk so much in the last few years leading up to this movie. And she does have like a very like standard like American girl like kind of accent. And right. Here she puts on like this Puerto Rican accent, and of course a lot of the other the other people in the play do it as well in the movie. And so I don't know, it just feels kind of like weird, and I don't know if that was like for her, especially because she is such a young and like upcoming actor. I would just be curious, like I'm very curious to see where she goes in the next couple of years, because
Shazam, baby.
This is Shazam, absolutely. That's going to be a big blockbuster for her. And Snow White, which we know she's doing opposite Gal Gadot as the witch. Like I am very curious to see those and to see what that looks like, and to see how her acting abilities develop and grow and strengthen, and her voice and all these other elements that I'm sure will be factors. Because she is so young, and so there's a lot that can happen. And so I think that this is a good like starting point and basis, but I wasn't like, oh my God, this is the most amazing performance I've ever seen. Like, this is the performance of the year. This is like I can't believe it. It wasn't like, I'd never felt like that. I definitely felt I thought her and Ansel Elgort were kind of, and again, their characters, maybe it's just the way I feel about those characters, but I felt like they were kind of on level with each other. And then I thought the other major supporting characters were like way above them as far as ability and performance and like what was going on. Whether it was Ariana DeBose as Anita, and then Mike Faist as Riff, and David Alvarez as Bernardo. I thought that those three were really the highlights. And I'd be curious, what were I don't know if you agree with that, so I'd be curious to hear that. And then as well, on top of that, the musical numbers throughout, which one stood out to you the most? And did you have like one particular favorite, or was it kind of like a handful that you really liked?
Well, on the acting front, I would say I thought that Rachel Zegler was fantastic. So I'm against you there. But I totally think that I agree with you on everything that you said about Ansel Elgort and like him being the weakest. Like, I didn't think he was a weak link, but if like I had to rank them, like he would be the lowest with with the talent of the ensemble, because I would imagine that a lot of those people are like musical theater people who were brought in to do this movie, and this is like their movie launching pad. But I know I'd seen Ariana DeBose in Schmigadoon, which is obviously very like musical theater heavy. But as far as the numbers go, I mean, the as a scene as a whole, not necessarily just the music, but the dance off at the gym that really gets things going. That was fantastic. And the I don't remember the title of the song, but when Tony's trying to get the gun from Riff, and they're dancing around on like I don't even know what it's like, a dock maybe, that has like all the holes in the wood. I thought that was like a very, very well shot and super exciting number for something that probably on paper isn't like very thrilling.
Yeah.
How about you?
No, I agree with those. Those are the opening number with the Jets and the Sharks. I mean, that's so good. The way it opens with that long take, and then it erupts and goes throughout the streets. And I thought that was just so good. America, of course, is a standout again, and just as it was in the original. But yeah, the two you shouted out, of course, the gym, beautiful colors, beautifully staged and choreographed. This isn't really a number, but it's the cross-cutting that happens with the editing at the culmination right before, as it's leading up to the rumble with the Jets and the Sharks at the kind of at the end of the second act. There's this cross-cutting between the Jets, the Sharks, Tony, Maria, and like all the other like central characters, and they're all singing, and it's all coming together. They're walking, through town to the rumble or to work or wherever each character is going. And it was just very like I was like, wow, like very impressive. It's like just the way it was all again in concert and edited together and performed, and it was very propulsive. I mean, the entire film is very propulsive, and that you can feel the momentum kind of building from scene to scene. And again, I do feel like it does lose some of that in the third act after Bernardo and Riff die. But yeah, overall, I thought that was certainly a highlight. The editing is exceptional. I would say this and Dune have the best editing of the entire year. And the sound, of course, as well. I'd say those are 1 and 2 as well. Amazing production design. It's almost hard to tell what is, a stage or a back lot or on location in New York. Like it's very well done, and I would love to see more behind the scenes on how they executed all of that. Of course, the musical numbers are stunningly choreographed and staged and shot, and there's so many extras, and it is really just so captivating when it's all happening. And the cinematography, again, Giannis Kaminsky, I don't know how he does it. Like him and Spielberg have been working together for like 25 plus years, and they continue to put out some fantastic, stunning images. Were there any scenes, as far as just the cinematography, whether it was camera movements or were there any certain shots as well that really stuck out to you, or that you were still thinking about after the fact? Because I've seen a few people talking on Twitter about certain shots or certain scenes that they were very impressed with.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I mentioned off the top of the shadows as they're entering the rumble was great.
Yes.
Anything within the apartment, honestly, was great, just because of the colors were so great there. As you had Anita's tapestries, her fabric, all like the bright, vibrant colors of those. So when they're dancing around through there, that was beautiful. And then the sequence underneath, there were two actually, I guess. The moment between Tony and Maria was it a church, where they're kind of like in that stone room, and they've got the lights coming through the window, and the under the bleachers scene. I think they had some really cool lighting under there when they first meet and had their little dance as well. So those are, I guess, just off the top as I'm thinking back right now. Those would be my picks. How about yourself?
Yeah, those are definitely some of the ones that come to mind as well. I know there was one shot people were talking about before I even got to see the movie, where they were talking about a scene or a shot with Tony standing in like a puddle that they were like blown away by. And yes, that is certainly an amazing shot. I don't know if you remember it off the top, but
I remember hearing people talk about it, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Really? Okay. So yeah, no, there's this amazing shot where he's singing after he's leaving the dance after he's met Maria, and he's dancing like down this alley and singing, and he is I don't even know how it happens exactly. He walks into this puddle and there's just, it's like waters all around him. And then there's these lights, and there's, I mean, you can't even count them all, but it looks like he's standing in like a pool of like stars, and it's all just shimmering like very like actively around him, and it's just like morphing. It was very like, I was like, holy, I was like, I get why people were talking that up. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, there's just so many great movements, and there's at the beginning of America, they have this bit where some women are out hanging out windows, and they're the clothesline that they have out is they're pulling it in, and as it's coming across, each new woman is revealed for her part to sing. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's so lively, it's so kinetic. I thought it was just great, and I think it's certainly, if you, regardless of the issues I have with it, regardless of whether that's to do with the story or the casting or what have you, I think this is a movie worth seeing, and it's a great big screen film as well, because it has that amazing sound with the songs, and then it also has the incredible visual elements as well, the colors and the movement, and then just the shot composition and everything. I think it deserves to be seen, and it's not doing very well at the box office right now, which is unfortunate, as most films are kind of struggling until Spider-Man comes out in a few days, but and that's not going to do West Side Story any favors. But I think between now and when the Oscars come out, if you get a chance, this is going to be a big player throughout the season. If you get a chance to watch it, certainly recommend checking it out in theaters, or eventually on video on demand or what have you. But I think that you'll find something to appreciate here, even if maybe you're not a fan of musical theater. I think this is some of Spielberg's strongest work of really the 20th century, maybe his best film in like 20 years, depending on what you think of films like Munich or War of the Worlds. But I think this is probably his best since Catch Me If You Can, which was 2002. So this is really great. It's very fun to know that Steven Spielberg can really, be in his bag, like you said, to this level. It makes me more excited to see what he can cook up in the next couple of years, and he's certainly far from being done. He has a lot to still dream up and put on the big screen.
Agreed. Any closing thoughts here before we wrap up? I'm with you on everything about make sure you see it. It's worth the watch, even if you're hesitant as a non-diehard musical theater fan. It's worth seeing.
The performances. Very, very good. I think DeBose deserves to get nominated for an Oscar. Feist would be in there for me as well. I'll be nominating both of them when we do our critics group nominations. Those two, I think, in particular, were the standouts. And so, but yeah, everything, singing, dancing, crushed it. Can't wait to see more from those two performers in particular. And I think that the last thing I'll say is that West Side Story should just like be done. Like you never need to do another West Side Story ever, anywhere again. Whether it's, and I know they just had like in 2020, I don't know what ended up happening with it, but they had a Broadway revival. I don't know if that's something that ended up recovering with the pandemic and whatnot, but I think we're West Side Storied out. I'm sure we'll get plenty of it in the future, but especially on film, I really don't think anyone else needs to try and touch this. I think this is pretty much as good as it's going to get. And it lived up. There was a lot of pressure on this, and I will admit, and that's the last thing I'll say, is I was not pessimistic, but I was a little curious about why Spielberg was going to do this, and I was a little skeptical of what the cast would be able to do, and creatively if it was going to be able to live up to the original that so many people love and revere. And I think it did do a great job, and it justified its existence, I think, enough. So that I think that would be one of the best compliments I could probably give it.
Well, there you have it, folks. West Side Story. Check it out. And thank you all for tuning in week in and week out. We appreciate it and would not be able to do it without your support.
Yes, absolutely. Again, busiest time of the year, but I love making time to do these episodes and discuss what's happening in the news, what we're up to, what we're watching. And please do keep up with us on Twitter, on Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube as well, where we post all the episodes in addition to some other content. And you can find those accounts at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, to The Rewind, so you can have everything delivered directly to you. You'll never miss a thing, and you'll be the first to know about different things like our Mad Max giveaway, as it is coming to you live today. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review as well, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there. And come back next week. It's going to be an early surprise episode. Not really a surprise because I just said that. An early episode. Spider-Man No Way Home coming at you next week. We'll see you then.